Fiona said, I mean, we've certainly seen in terms of male victims a far better response nowadays than when we started in terms of their response. And also there are a number of IDVAs and ISVAs who support male victims as well. So things have got better in that respect. I mean, certainly from just widening it out, and in terms of the education at schools, I mean, one thing for us is to make sure that education and the clause and the new initiatives being put forward through Parliament over the next weeks are actually including making sure that men are included in terms of women, making sure that they also fully respect and understand men as well, because this isn't a zero-sum game. You can't have sex and health education where it's only viewed that only women can be victims and only men can be perpetrators. If we're really going to have an equal and inclusive and fair society, we need to make sure that women actually receive those same messages. And one of the most marginalised, if not the most marginalised group of domestic abuse victims are actually women in same-sex relationships, because they're completely overlooked by public policy. So I think that's really important. The last point is really, I touched upon it, but we have an Ending Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, which is absolutely superb at supporting women and girls and should not be changed, should be more money. But it does not support male victims who are victims of sexual abuse, domestic abuse, stalking, sexual violence, forced marriage. But at the moment, they're all wrapped up under that government strategy, and that can no longer be tolerated. So we should have a parallel strategy that supports male victims in the same way, whilst making sure we continue the improvement in supporting women who are victims of those crimes.
Can I add something? We keep talking about the academic sense of education, but there is a creative sense too, something creative too, especially for young children. Because young children, their mind are very creative and imaginative, so if you bring too much of this academic, like GCSE and things like that, it can be very difficult at times. So I think there is some way we can also, interact, creativity, acting, some sort of way of bringing that out with children in education, especially the young, because their mind is so creative, so imaginative. So if you put too much of that academic, it can really, give that child such a way of saying. So I think there are ways, plays or poetry or acting, some sort of way where we can really, reach out to them, because there is so much academic. Give some creativity, singing with it, bring it more in the television or something like that. But not just keep it in that sort of, program. That is how I see we can add that on, to with the young people, especially for education. Thank you.
Question for the man in the seats.
To Adam Dukes, please. First of all, just a little quote, Adam. Ellen Pence was the initiator of the Duluth Domestic Abuser Program back in the late 70s, early 80s, I believe. In her book in 1999, she writes, and I quote, "By determining that the need or desire for power was the motivating force behind battering, we created a conceptual framework that, in fact, did not fit the lived experience of many of the men and women we were working with. Like those we were criticizing, we reduced our analysis to a psychological universal truism. It was the cases themselves that created the chink in our theoretical suits of armor. Speaking for myself, I found that many of the men I interviewed did not seem to articulate a desire for power over their partner, although I relentlessly took every opportunity to point out to the men in groups that they were so motivated. Eventually, we realized that we were finding what we had already predetermined to find." Any comments on that?
You ever heard of false consciousness?
Sorry?
You ever heard of false consciousness? As Freud once said, the trouble with self-analysis is the countertransference. I'll unpack that. What he meant was it's almost impossible for us to be honest with ourselves about how shitty we are, because it would destroy our self-love.
Does this not sound as if this woman was actually really
No, I
looking
think no. I'm
insightful at
saying
what
I'm
she
sort
was
of saying is that I think that she was eventually seduced into that false consciousness. Look, my account of why men abuse is I've written 1 million words about this.
I
How
wonder
much-
whether she's read 1,000 men.
How much do you want me to say?
Yeah, sorry, it's not a
What?
discussion. Thank you for your question, but let Adam
So,
answer.
can I ask another question as well, please?
After
Okay.
other people have asked questions.
May I just say, I have a very, very complex and nuanced position about why men do this. I cannot give it to you in 10 minutes.
White shirt? Oh, sorry, Mark. Did you like to answer?
No.
Okay.
So my question's for Adam and Mark. Just wondering what your thoughts are on what the causes of female to male abuse and domestic violence is.
I didn't hear what you said.
What causes females to
What
be
causes it?
perpetrators?
Well, I can only speak from my clinical experience. Every male abuser I've ever met suffers from suffers from an attachment disorder, every single one. And underpinning that attachment disorder is an emotional deficit disorder. And in order to help a man to really stop being controlling and abusive, it takes a long time. It can't be done in 36 weeks. You're talking about something that could take anything up to 5 years. I'm quite clear about that, and often they have dual diagnoses or more than dual diagnoses. The women I've worked with who have been abusive, and it isn't a large population, so I'm on shaky ground when I generalise, but they've all been diagnosable. They've all had a DSM pathology, every single one.
Sorry, what's the DSM pathology?
Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's the kind of it's the universal Bible of illnesses, psychiatric illnesses.
I mean, to be honest, there isn't a difference. The issues, and to be fair, you mentioned emotional disorder for male victims. That's exactly the same. For male perpetrators, that's the same for female perpetrators. There isn't a difference. It's still about the need to have power and control over somebody you're in a relationship because of the weaknesses that you have emotionally. So there isn't a difference. And that's why I always talk about the experience of a male victim is around 80 to 90% the same types of experiences that a female victim will go through. There's certain nuances around children in a household, problems about being believed and being laughed at, etc. But by and large, it's overwhelmingly the same experience for both perpetrator in terms of why they perpetrate and also what the experiences that victim goes through.
Thank you, Mark and Adam.